Chapter 1. The Machines That Destroyed Themselves. Natanz Nuclear Facility, Underground Complex, Central Iran. Autumn 2009, Natanz, Iran. Autumn of 2009. 8 meters below the desert floor, protected by reinforced concrete and missile batteries, 5,000 machines spin in perfect silence. They spin at exactly 1,064 rotations per second. Not more, not less. That number is not arbitrary. At that precise frequency, uranium hexafluoride gas separates. Enriched uranium emerges slowly, grain by grain, hour after hour, day after day. Iranian engineers monitor every detail, every pressure reading, every temperature variation, every data point on every screen. Everything is normal, everything is green. But the machines are tearing themselves apart from the inside, not all at once. Not in any way anyone can see. One by one, in absolute silence, the centrifuges are being pushed beyond their operating limits. Then pulled back, then pushed again. In a rhythm so precise, so calculated, that it takes months before anyone understands what is happening. Months during which Iran's nuclear program bleeds. Months during which machines break down for no apparent reason. Months during which engineers stare at wreckage and whisper in the dark hallways of the facility. What is doing this to us? The answer is not a missile, not a bomb, not an airstrike, not a commando operation in the dead of night. It is 16 kilobytes of code. And it is the most sophisticated act of sabotage in the history of human conflict. Chapter 2. The Fortress Below the Desert. Natanz, Underground Nuclear Facility, Iran, 2006 to 2009. To understand what happened at Natanz, you must first understand what Natanz was built to resist. Iran had constructed that complex with a single purpose: to make it invulnerable. The facility sat completely underground. The ceiling was built from multiple layers of reinforced concrete and hardened steel, thick enough to survive a direct airstrike. Around the perimeter above ground, anti-aircraft missile batteries covered every centimeter of sky. The facility had its own air defense network, its own power supply, its own supply chain. And the computers that controlled the centrifuges? Completely isolated from the outside world. In cybersecurity, this has a name: an air gap. A separation so absolute that no digital signal, no radio wave, no network packet can cross it. The computers at Natanz were not protected by sophisticated firewalls or advanced encryption. They were simply unreachable, in the most absolute sense that word allows. Military planners in Washington and Jerusalem ran the numbers. A conventional strike on Natanz could set the Iranian program back 3 years, perhaps 5. But the cost would be devastating. Open war with a nation of 80 million people. Oil prices spiking to catastrophic levels. The Middle East in flames. Iranian proxies unleashed across every neighboring capital. A military strike was almost unthinkable. There had to be another way. And somewhere, in a windowless room, in a facility whose name appears in no public document, someone asked a question that had never been seriously asked before in the history of warfare. What if a weapon could think? Chapter 3. Writing a Weapon Out of Physics. Idaho National Laboratory, United States, Classified Facility. Israel, 2006 to 2008. Not think in the science fiction sense. Think in the engineering sense. What if a virus could be built with such precision, with such specific knowledge of its target, that it could travel through every defense in the digital world, find exactly the right machine, in exactly the right facility, running exactly the right configuration, and then execute a surgical operation that no human hand could ever replicate? The idea was audacious. It was probably insane. The people who first proposed it spent months being told it was impossible. They built it anyway. The first challenge was knowledge. You cannot attack a system you do not understand. The centrifuges at Natanz were controlled by Siemens programmable logic controllers. Industrial computers of extraordinary complexity, running proprietary software, governing physical machinery through a language of electrical signals that most software engineers would never encounter in an entire career. To create a virus capable of destroying these systems, the weapons architects needed to understand them the way a surgeon understands human anatomy. Not just the software, the physics. They needed to know how changes in code produced changes in metal, how variations in rotational speed created stress patterns in cylinders spinning faster than jet turbine blades, how vibrations accumulated over time, how a machine could be forced to destroy itself, slowly, invisibly, without triggering a single automated alarm. So they built a replica. Somewhere, analysts identified the Idaho National Laboratory in the United States as the most probable site, with parallel work conducted at a classified facility in Israel. Engineers acquired the exact Siemens controller models used at Natanz, connected them to centrifuges of identical design, and spent years learning how to break them, methodically, patiently. The way you learn to pick a lock by studying every spring, every thousandth of a millimeter of mechanical tolerance. They were not writing code, they were writing physics. Chapter 4. The Invisible Passenger. Supply Chain Networks, Iran, 2008 to 2009. The second challenge was delivery. An air-gapped network cannot be attacked remotely, but it can be attacked through proximity. And proximity, in the world of intelligence operations, is always achievable if you have enough patience and think sideways. Because every fortress has a supply chain. Every impenetrable complex needs technicians. Every isolated system was built by someone who came from the outside. Stuxnet, the name the weapon would eventually receive from cybersecurity researchers, was designed to travel on USB drives. The theory, never officially confirmed, because the people involved will not speak, is that the virus was introduced into the supply networks of companies doing legitimate business with the Natanz facility. Iranian contractors, component suppliers, engineers who traveled freely between the outside world and the facility's outer administrative systems, carrying laptops, carrying portable devices, carrying, without any knowledge whatsoever, a passenger so small and so silent that it was, for all practical purposes, invisible. But Stuxnet was not designed to spread like an ordinary virus. An ordinary virus propagates without discrimination. It infects every machine it touches. It announces its presence through the chaos it creates. It triggers alarms. It attracts attention. Stuxnet was designed to spread with the discipline of a trained operative in enemy territory. It moved through networks like a ghost moving through a house, touching walls, testing doors, searching for one specific room, leaving no trace unless it found exactly what it was looking for. To achieve this, the weapons architects did something without precedent in the history of digital security. They exploited 4 zero-day vulnerabilities in Microsoft Windows, 4 completely unknown flaws in the world's most widely used operating system. In the intelligence community, a single zero-day vulnerability is a treasure. It takes months, sometimes years, to find one. Agencies guard them, hold them in reserve, use them with extreme caution, because once used, they are burned forever. Stuxnet used 4. The investment required to find those vulnerabilities, hold them in reserve, and spend them all on a single operation against a single target. That was not the behavior of criminal hackers, not the behavior of corporate spies. That was the behavior of a nation-state. 2 nation-states, as the world would later discover. Chapter 5. The Ghost Inside the Machine. Natanz Nuclear Facility, Underground Control Room, Iran, 2009. When Stuxnet finally found the right machine, when it found itself inside a computer connected to a Siemens controller of the exact model used at Natanz, running the exact software configuration used at Natanz, governing centrifuges spinning at the exact frequency used at Natanz, it did not attack immediately. It waited. The patience embedded in this weapon's design is almost impossible for the human mind to comprehend. Stuxnet observed. It recorded normal operating data, normal pressure readings, normal rotational frequencies, normal system behavior, and stored that information in its own memory. Like a predator learning the habits of its prey before striking. Then, at precisely calculated intervals, it began. The virus sent false commands to the centrifuge motors, pushing their rotational speed beyond safe operating parameters. Then it restored normal speed. Then it waited. Then it pushed again. The intervals were long enough that the damage to the machinery was cumulative, but not immediately catastrophic. A slow accumulation of destruction that mimicked natural wear rather than sabotage. And while it did this, while it was systematically destroying the machines, it sent the monitoring system something completely different. A recording. A perfect loop of normal operating data, playing continuously on the control screens while the actual machines below suffered in total silence. The engineers saw green. They saw normal readings. They saw exactly what Stuxnet wanted them to see. The centrifuges, inside, were experiencing stresses their designers had never contemplated. Vibrations accumulated in the metal. Bearings wore down unevenly. Microscopic fractures propagated through cylinders spinning faster than jet turbine blades. One centrifuge failed. Then another. Then clusters of them, in patterns that made no engineering sense whatsoever. Patterns that baffled maintenance teams looking at first-quality equipment installed by qualified technicians following correct procedures. The Iranian engineers eventually contacted Siemens, the German manufacturer, to complain about defective products. Siemens sent technicians to investigate. They examined the hardware. They found nothing wrong with the hardware, because nothing was wrong with the hardware. The problem was in the logic. Buried in 16 kilobytes of code that had disguised itself as a legitimate software certificate and embedded itself in the system's deepest architecture, below the level where any standard diagnostic tool would ever look. Chapter 6. The Virus That Escaped. Minsk, Belarus. Virus blockade offices. Spring 2010. In the spring of 2010, something went wrong. Not with the sabotage was working. What went wrong was containment. A version of Stuxnet escaped, whether through a coding error in the weapon's self-propagation mechanism or through a piece of equipment removed from the Natanz facility and connected to an external network. The virus that was meant to exist only inside a specific air-gapped facility suddenly began appearing on computers in India, in Indonesia, in Belarus, in the United States. It spread silently at first. Then it was detected. A small cybersecurity company called Virus Blockade, based in Minsk, Belarus, noticed something strange on a client's computer. Software with no obvious criminal purpose. No ransom demands. No theft of banking credentials. Apparently doing nothing, but employing technical sophistication that the company's analysts had never encountered in years of work. They published their findings. The global cybersecurity community reacted the way the scientific community reacts to the discovery of an unknown species. With fascination, with disbelief, and with the slow and vertiginous recognition that the world they thought they knew had changed while they were looking elsewhere. Analysts at Symantec, at Kaspersky Lab, at independent research firms around the world spent months reverse engineering Stuxnet. Every layer they removed revealed another layer. Every piece of decoded logic pointed to a depth of investment, a specificity of targeting, a sophistication of execution that fit no known category of cyber attack. Criminal hackers don't invest this much. Corporate spies don't build with this precision. This was something new. Ralph Langner, a German industrial control systems security expert working alone in Hamburg, published the analysis that made everything explicit. Hamburg, Germany, Ralph Langner's research office. 2010 Stuxnet, he wrote, was a precision cyberweapon designed to attack one specific target. That target was Iran's uranium enrichment program, and it had, almost certainly, already completed its work. The silence from Tehran in the days that followed was the loudest confirmation anyone needed. Chapter 7. The President Who Said Nothing. The White House, Washington, D.C., United States, 2010 to 2012. In June 2012, the New York Times published a story that shattered the last wall of official silence. Journalist David Sanger, one of the most respected national security reporters in American history, revealed the existence of a classified program called Operation Olympic Games. The program had been initiated under President George W. Bush and continued, expanded, accelerated under President Barack Obama. The primary American partner was the National Security Agency, the NSA. The primary foreign partner was Unit 8200, the Signals Intelligence Division of the Israeli military. Obama had personally overseen the operation. Oval Office, the White House, Washington, D.C. 2010. When Stuxnet escaped containment in 2010, the president's first instinct was to shut it down immediately. His advisors argued against it. The weapon was working. The alternative to the weapon was a military strike, or accepting an Iranian nuclear bomb. Obama made a decision that no president had ever made before in the history of the United States. He authorized the continued deployment of a cyberweapon against the critical infrastructure of a sovereign nation during a time of nominal peace. He never publicly acknowledged it. No American official was prosecuted. No public hearing was ever held. The operation existed officially in the space between war and peace, a space with no name in international law, no precedent in military doctrine, no clear framework in any treaty ever signed. It worked anyway. Chapter 8. 1,000 Machines Go Dark. Natanz Nuclear Facility, Iran, 2009 to 2012, Vienna, Austria, IAEA headquarters. The numbers told the story that no government would tell in words. International Atomic Energy Agency inspectors, who maintained access to Natanz under monitoring agreements, documented the operational centrifuge count over time. Between 2009 and 2010, during the period of Stuxnet's maximum activity, the number of functioning centrifuges at Natanz dropped significantly. Machines that Iran had spent years and billions of dollars acquiring went dark. Conservative estimates conclude that Stuxnet destroyed approximately 1,000 centrifuges, nearly 20% of Iran's operational capacity at the time, and delayed the nuclear program between 2 and 3 years. What is not disputed is that during the critical window between 2009 and 2012, Iran did not cross the threshold that Western intelligence agencies feared most. The operation bought time. Time for diplomacy. Time for sanctions to bite. Time, ultimately, for the negotiations that produced the 2015 nuclear agreement. Chapter 8. 1,000 Machines Go Dark. Natanz Nuclear Facility, Iran, 2009 to 2012, Vienna, Austria, IAEA headquarters. The numbers told the story that no government would tell in words. International Atomic Energy Agency inspectors, who maintained access to Natanz under monitoring agreements, documented the operational centrifuge count over time. Between 2009 and 2010, during the period of Stuxnet's maximum activity, the number of functioning centrifuges at Natanz dropped significantly. machines that Iran had spent years and billions of dollars acquiring, went dark. Conservative estimates conclude that Stuxnet destroyed approximately 1,000 centrifuges, nearly 20% of Iran's operational capacity at the time, and delayed the nuclear program between 2 and 3 years. What is not disputed is that during the critical window between 2009 and 2012, Iran did not cross the threshold that Western intelligence agencies feared most. The operation bought time. Time for diplomacy. Time for sanctions to bite. Time, ultimately, for the negotiations that produced the 2015 nuclear agreement. Chapter 10. The Number That No One Explains. Global Cybersecurity Research Offices, 2010 to 2011. The security researchers who spent months analyzing Stuxnet's code found something near the end of their work. A small string of characters with no apparent function, no operational purpose, no technical explanation. A number, 19790509. A date, May 9th, 1979. Tehran, Iran, May 9th, 1979. On that day, a prominent Iranian Jewish businessman named Habib Elghanian was executed by firing squad in Tehran, becoming one of the first prominent figures killed by the revolutionary government of Ayatollah Khomeini. His execution sent a wave of terror through Iran's Jewish community and triggered a mass exodus that scattered tens of thousands of Iranian Jews across Israel, the United States, and Europe. Whether that date was placed in the code as a message to Iran, as a memorial to the dead, as a signature left by someone who knew that no one outside a very small circle would ever read it. No one who knows will say, the people who built Stuxnet have never been officially identified. No government has claimed credit in any official capacity. No trial has been held. No public medal has been awarded to anyone for what was achieved beneath the desert of Natanz. Somewhere, there are men and women who spent years of their lives building the most sophisticated cyberweapon ever deployed in human history. They understood industrial control systems in ways that most engineers never will. They wrote code that behaved differently in the real world than in the laboratory. Code that adapted, that observed, that waited with the patience of something that does not feel fear. They may have saved many lives. They also opened a door that cannot be closed, and they did it in total silence, in total anonymity, with nothing but code and physics and the cold, precise, terrible intelligence of people who understood that the most dangerous weapon of the 21st century would never be made of steel. It would be made of logic. The centrifuges at Natanz are spinning again. And somewhere in the memory of a machine that no one is supposed to know about, a date sits in silence. May 9th, 1979. No one will explain why.